I'm Larry King. Trump and Biden are ramping up their campaign efforts. Are some voters still casting ballots? Are some still undecided? For this, I'm joined by Larry Sabato, founder and director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Last month, he launched a new live web series called Sabato's Crystal Ball, America Votes. He is in Charlottesville. Larry, Bob Woodward's book on Trump is out, and Trump has admitted he knew how bad this was way back, but he didn't want to scare anybody. So my question is, why did he talk against masks if he knew how bad it was?
You know, on January 1st, when we were looking at the election, I think Trump was a substantial favorite to term. The economy was great. We weren't at war. People had gotten used to the way he was. He knew the pandemic was going to cause him a problem. He almost fooled him. He didn't believe this was going to be a major problem, and he decided to pretend it wasn't going to be a major problem. And obviously, approaching 200,000 deaths, it's a major problem.
Why do you think he admitted it now?
I can't give you a rational explanation for most of what Donald Trump does. You know, he should have stuck story. This new story is worse than the original story. Most people could understand that the president would make a bad move, a bad judgment. But in this case, he's basically saying, well, I lied to you hoping it was in your best interest, but it was certainly in my best interest.
So he looks worse today than he looked 2 days before the book came out.
Absolutely, he does. That's why Bob Woodward, you know well, released it, because it's a hot piece of information.
What effect do you think it will have on the election?
It's going to bring the pandemic back to the center of the debate. We'd lost that for a while because of all the racial unrest that had taken the place of the pandemic. But this is going to put the pandemic back on Trump's plate. I don't see he explains it. He doesn't want this. We're in the last of the election. And naturally, Biden is going to use it every day. He should use it every day.
There's never been anything like this, right, Larry? Never.
Never. Well, there's been nothing like Trump in our entire history.
That's what I mean.
This is even more, right. This is more extreme than the normal. So, yes, this is something that I just can't explain. I can't explain really, other than Hillary Clinton, how he ever won.
If the votes were counted today, would Biden win?
Absolutely. It wouldn't be particularly close today. I realize that things can change, but how do you get around the pandemic? I just don't see it. And the economic problems. How do you get around them in 7 weeks?
Well, he's counting on law and order, right? And scaring people in the suburbs.
Yes. And both of us lived through Richard Nixon. Well, it works some places. It may work in Wisconsin, though you don't see it in the polls yet. You and I lived through Richard Nixon, and we remember his use of the law and order issue, which did work for him. But he wasn't the incumbent. You know, the natural question for people to ask is, why isn't Donald Trump handling the problem now? He's the incumbent. He's in charge.
Yeah, he's saying, elect me so we can have more law and order, but you're responsible for law and order, right? And he's running like he's not in office.
He always likes to pretend that he's not the incumbent. It just doesn't work. He's been in office for almost 4 years.
What do you make of the flack now about him calling soldiers who had passed away in war losers and suckers?
That the Trump White House has done a pretty good job fighting that, because they produced 10 or 12 people who were there with the president in France, who claim he never said any such thing. However, I think most of us realize, given his pattern of attacking John McCain and his pattern of calling people losers and suckers, and he's clearly said it before when he and his chief of staff, John Kelly, visited Kelly's son's grave. His son was killed in war. Uh, Trump said something very similar to John Kelly. So you can easily imagine those words coming out of Trump's mouth. And that makes it tough for him to refute this. And it infuriates people.
Yeah, what did he, that one surviving member of a family, he said, well, he signed up for it.
Yes, he signed up for it. He didn't sign up to die. He signed up to fight for his country. But he gets away with things, Larry, that none of the politicians you've interviewed over decades could ever get away with. Ever.
All right. Why? How does he do it?
He made an emotional connection with tens of millions of Americans who were mainly blue collar, who felt they had been cut out, who weren't part of the conversation. And because he made such an emotional connection with them, they will forgive him anything. Either they believe him that he didn't say it, or they don't care that he said it. It's one or the other. They always say something like, well, he isn't a politician. Really? He's president of the United States. He is a politician.
What do you make of his attack on the Pentagon brass, saying, he loves the troops, but not the brass?
He's had a lot of fights with the Pentagon brass because he is not respectful. As he said during the campaign, I know more than the generals. How many times did he say that? I know more than the generals. And they know that's not true. And he's insulted many of them personally. He's gone into the Pentagon and said terrible things to his own generals, insulting things. Well, that has a price. Trump really wants the votes of the rank and file. Now, originally, he had 70+% support. The best soundings now are basically 50-50. He's still got half of the troops, but that's a real come down from 70%.
Is it true that you know all about this, that his standing with Hispanic voters is stronger now than 4 years ago?
It is. It's mainly because of Cuban Americans, mainly in Florida. The Cuban Americans believe that he is strongly anti-Castro. Castro's been dead for years, but a lot of the older Cuban Americans, Larry, when you go down and talk to them, they start talking about the Bay of Pigs. It was April 1961. They've been mad at Democrats since JFK and the Bay of Pigs. I don't know how you're ever going to change that. Other Hispanics are much more pro-Biden.
Could we have an election similar to 4 years ago with the popular vote winner being the loser?
Yes. I hope it doesn't happen. It's terrible for the country if it does. It's going to encourage violence because twice in a row you will have had the popular vote not producing a president. But it could happen because the Electoral College has gone over here and the popular vote has gone over there. And that's half the problem.
All right, what about the theory, you know better than anyone, of so-called secret Trump supporters? They say the polls are missing these people who really are not saying what they are about, and then on election day will vote for him.
There are some of them. They don't say they're for Biden. They're not lying and telling pollsters they're going to vote for the other candidate. They're the people who say, I'm undecided. Actually, they're very decided. They voted for him 4 years ago. They're going to go into the polls and vote for him again.
Has Kamala Harris helped the ticket?
I think she helps. I don't think a vice presidential candidate ever produces a victory, the exception being Lyndon Johnson in 1960 for JFK. But she helps him. I think she's popular among communities where turnout was a terrible problem for Hillary Clinton. And Biden has to make sure that minority communities vote.
Polling is your business. Are there too many polls?
Actually, I would argue there aren't in the key swing states. I like to do polling, which most people today do. We don't rely on this poll because we think it's great or that poll because we think it's great. You wash out a lot of the error in polling when you average out the results. That's fine nationally, but the popular vote doesn't mean anything. I want to see more polls in Michigan. I want to see more polls in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Arizona so that we can average them and have a pretty good idea of what's happening.
How important is the upcoming debate?
Much less important than most people think. It's theater.
Really?
The vast majority of people don't change their minds in debates. They tune in to cheer for their side. It's like a sporting event. So, and the Democrats come away saying, my guy won. And the Republicans come away and say, my guy won. So they really don't change very much.
Larry, you've been doing this how long now at Virginia?
I've been doing it since the 1960s.
Wow.
It's been a long time, Larry.
Yeah. Well, it was great working with you and great seeing you again. Stay well, Larry.
That you particularly, we need you. You're in. Really give me hope, Larry. You stay healthy. All right.